I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the
Two Crazy Cat Ladies.
I'm gonna cut you.
I think I just peed.
Buckle up. We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. And we are joined by someone brand new to you all, or brand new to our podcast at least. This week, Sabrina with RAWR.
RAWR!
Cat
Eat
Food.
like a lion.
That's right. Hello, Sabrina. Welcome.
Nice to see you guys again.
Good to see you. So we had the pleasure of meeting you very impromptu at Super Zoo last year, and I have been learning more about what you've done, what you're doing ever since then. For anyone that is joining that has never heard of Sabrina or Eat Like a Lion or your beautiful brand RAWR, could you give everyone a short intro?
Absolutely. My name's Sabrina. I own RAWR. I started that brand almost 10 years ago. But there's a whole backstory to that, which was, as many people have had, a very sick cat. So I adopted this kitten and he was a mess. His poops were terrible. He smelled bad. He was so unhappy, crying all the time. So I took him vet to vet. We tried prescription drugs. We tried acupuncture. We tried herbs. It was like the gamut. And this was 2003. So I'm like, oh, I'll go in Yahoo groups, So I'm like looking in Yahoo groups, reading what we can do to, help him. And I landed on raw food. And it was very new, back then. So I started looking at different recipes and I finally kind of formulated one that I thought was good, which now probably not so balanced, but it's okay. It was a start. So I started feeding him food I had made, and it was honestly maybe 10 days, and he was a whole different cat. His digestion recovered. His poops were small, clean. They didn't smell. And after that, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
So I did that for years. And I got a little bit better. I got a little grinder and I would go and get livers. And because at that point I had really researched raw feeding and tried to formulate something that was better. And I had gotten a second cat at that point. So I would make them food once a month in my kitchen. And it was like an episode of Dexter. It was like, put the plastic up, there's plastic everywhere. It was a mess. But that's what I did for years and years and years. And then one day, a friend of mine was like, hey, there's this women's small business class. And I don't know how it came up. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I took this class. I wrote a beautiful 40-page business plan that looks nothing like my business. And I was like, cool, I'm going to make cat food. So I kind of juggled cat food and my regular job for, I want to say that was probably 3 or 4 years. And then I got my first brick and mortar. It was this adorable, tiny, tiny shop with a processing area in the back. And we just kind of slowly grew that way. We were doing home deliveries. Then we got our first store. Then we got our first distributor. And it's been a very interesting ride, to say the least, And now I'm too deep in it. Like this is my life. I make cat food. So
yeah, you're not just making cat food though. What I love is that, and so often this is what I love about small businesses that really just dive in and they're doing it no matter what, no matter the challenges, because it's life changing. And you got to see that yourself, like straight up with your own cat. And I love that you took that. Oh, sorry, we got an incoming cat. Come here, bud. Ready?
I told you they can be distracting.
Yeah, sorry about that. He needed a little hand down. But come here, bud. You want to share a chair with me? Yes. But to actually get to see the change that you made in your own kitten's life, especially with that, that cyclical going back and forth to the vet, really trying all the stuff and things that are there to try, and then realizing it's something as foundational as food.
Yeah, and I bet you see it now over all the years. You've seen it time and time again with your customers as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see it with my customers a lot, especially customers who think their cats have an allergy. A lot of allergies tend to be all of the additions that are in dry or canned food. Because not only are they chock full of mystery ingredients, but a lot of them you don't even need to put on the ingredient label. So the question is, what's really in my food?
Yep.
And that was part of it too. Like being in this industry, my goal is really to always have integrity and be transparent. So it's like our label, what's in there is exactly what's in there. There's never anything different. But yeah, the transformation that cats have when they go on a raw food diet, it's pretty wild, you know?
So this goes back, like, I love that you really were part of raw feeding when it was so new, like,
Oh yeah.
freaky new. Like, you
think about the backlash that you hear these days, like imagine what it was in 2003. You know?
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking about. Even in 2010, when I finally started my business, people would say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "I make cat food." And they're like, "What?" Now people are like, "Oh, cool."
Yes.
My friend's dog or something eats raw food. So people know. At least it's something, you know.
Yeah.
Right now it's the fastest growing segment of the pet food industry. So, you know, it is getting out there a lot more now, which also comes with a lot of, you know, the backlash, if you will, from, you know, the conventional side, the conventional world of stay away from raw will kill your cat. And you.
Oh, who do you have? You have a little panther as well?
This is Lucy. Lucy, do you want to say hi? She's a
tortie.
She is. So Lucy, side, I used to be part of a cat cafe. So I ran the cafe portion of the cat cafe for 7 years. And one day these two men came in and they had this with them, but she was about that big. And yeah, she must have honestly been 2 or 3 days old. She still had an umbilical cord.
Oh my goodness.
So I raised her and here she still is, you know. I had done a lot of kitten rescue, so I was used to raising them and adopting them out, but no.
Not Lucy.
Not Lucy. She's here to stay.
Lucy is here to stay. So for newbies, and I know that there's still a lot of people that are kind of on the fence about raw feeding. And I know for me, and I've said this so many times, that when we started doing this about 8 years ago, so we're much newer at this than you are, I literally had such a fear of raw food that I told Jay, who had been researching it for a year or more, realizing that cats are obligate carnivores and that this is their natural diet.
And it's common sense that they would.
Right. I still felt like she was going to kill our cats. Feeding raw food. What was there a hurdle like that for you to jump over? How did you finally say, "Oh, I'm going to go from this bag of dry bits to feeding my cat real raw meat"?
I mean, I think I was at the end of my rope for that kitten specifically. There wasn't anything to lose, honestly, at that point. And not long after, I saw a video, which I wish I could find, with someone just questioning, like, how do you make cat food that's kibble? Like, he had all the ingredients and was like, how do I do this? And I just started thinking, yeah, exactly. You know, when I make cat food, it's real food. You know how to make a recipe for it.
Yep.
But kibble, no idea.
Yeah, and the overwhelming majority of kibble is of the, you know, big brand kibble food and much of the wet food as well of those big brands. They're not human grade food. They're not food. They're not even classified as food, even though they're allowed to say that on their bags and their cans that it's cat food. They're not supposed to be able to say that, right? Like because it is actually feed grade, which means the ingredients that they're putting into our cat's food is meant more for landfills or for, you know, like the pigs, like, and I mean,
And
my
pigs
dad
make
used
good
to,
food too.
they do, but my dad used to work in one of these plants. Okay.
A rendering
In a
plant.
rendering facility. And he was like, it was like my senior year in high school, and he was just working factory jobs. And this particular job, everybody in our small town knew what this place was, or that we knew that it was like the stinkiest place in all of the town. So you had to hold your breath 10 minutes out from this facility and don't breathe until you get to a certain point. Then you can breathe again, or don't breathe through your nose at least, because it's going to smell so horrid. And and we all called it like the roadkill place, because you would see the trucks driving by and they would pick up all the roadkill. We lived in Tennessee. There was a lot of roadkill. They would pick up all the roadkill, of whatever, and they would bring it to this plant. And at that time, I didn't really put two and two together. I just thought, I'm not living in this house if you're going to continue working this job, because you smell horrible. And my mom would literally have to hose him down before he came in the house every evening. And it still didn't get rid of the smell. And I did, in fact, move out in my high school year and moved in with my friend until he quit his job. And he did quit his job. But it was like that bad. I was like, I'm protesting this. I can't do this. But he was making pet food is what he was doing. And this horror stories of what went through that, the disease, decayed animals, and the beaks and the feathers and the all this plastic maggots, scissors even went through it. Mm-hmm. Metal went through it. He was like, well, these are huge machineries, and you can't stopping them takes a long time to slow down. It's, so when we'd have the animals on the tarps, but then if the tarp gets stuck in there, you can't grab it or you're going to lose your arm. So the tarp just goes through, and we're like, well, what is that? And he's like, well, it's called protein. They call it protein. I'm like, a tarp, a pair of scissors. Like, really? And that is what is going into our cat's food when we're buying these, and even though they're able to spend, hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, saying that they are the healthiest and the natural and all the, claims that they make, when you know better, you got to do better.
Pictures on the bags are very deceptive. And that's the hard part with this industry is it really is about making money. And if you look at who owns those companies,
right?
It's candy Mars, bars. It's Nestle,
it's candy bars.
Yeah, they're candy bar companies, exactly. And especially right now in the climate that we're in with the bird flu, there's kind of this misconception that it's cooked, so it's safe. Okay, well, a tarp's never going to be safe.
No.
I don't care how much you cook it, it's never going to be safe for anyone to eat. And when you think about, how small a cat is compared to us, if those feed grade ingredients aren't safe for a 150-pound human, they're certainly not safe for an 8-pound cat.
Right.
12-pound cat. I don't care how big your cat is, it's never going to be big enough. Right. So it is difficult because there's a lot of stigma, a lot of fear around raw feeding. Unfortunately, the American Vet Association doesn't help with that.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. I mean, things are changing for sure. It's slow. It's a slow change.
It is.
And the other difficulty, with cats in general is people are like, oh, my cat's so stubborn. No, your cat's an imprint eater. They were taught this is food. Everything else is shoelaces. So to transition them from a crunchy kibble, right, that has all sorts of mystery ingredients. I mean, they actually make powders that you can put in to make it more palatable for a cat. They have ones for cats. They have ones for dogs. Transitioning from that to raw meat that really, if it's clean raw meat, it's not going to smell much at all. Right. It takes time. It does. And it requires the human to be like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Right?
That is what we have to continually preach to, the cat community, is that the issue is more on the human than it is on the cat. Mm-hmm. But you got to also give your cat grace when it's like, well, my cat won't eat this. When you put something down for the first time, they've never seen it. A lot of times they're not going to eat it. Right. And that's normal. But the amount of millions, maybe billions of dollars that they have spent, that these pet food companies have spent to create those palatants, that they have done extensive research on what chemicals can we put together to put on these dry foods in order to make these cats addicted to our foods. They literally have done this so that our cats are now addicted to the food. So we have to like understand that we're not dealing with like picky cats and finicky whatever. We're dealing with an addict, basically, right? So we have to be patient. You wouldn't, I mean, I don't know how to compare that to drugs, but
probably we shouldn't. You wouldn't go cold turkey. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of time.
Figuratively.
I want to reiterate the whole human part of this, because I feel like some people think, well, oh, that's easy to say. I mean, I lived through it, and it was a human issue between Jay and I, like, because Jay was like, this is what needs to be done now. We are dealing with escalating illnesses in our own cats. And this is something that is going to, more than some kind of prescription or this or that. It's just this is what we're doing foundationally. And it was physically difficult for me to watch our cats be like, where is our food?
Yeah. Right. You feel very guilty because it's one of the few things they're really dependent on and interested in.
Right. So it was, we learned so much of the trickery, whether it's taking their favorite kibble, smashing it up and sprinkling it over, finding good meal toppers, or literally just leaving. We did the transition from kibble to wet food to raw food. So they had a little longer runway with the texture, right? With just even the texture of foods. But the bigger challenge was definitely me.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it was also really interesting. So at that time we had 6 cats, and they were almost all, they were ages 7 and up. Right. So many of them were senior cats. And it was very interesting to see which ones took to it versus which ones were like, nope. Right. So you would think, and most people think, well, my cat's been eating kibble his whole life and he's now 15 years old. There's no way I'm going to get him to eat a raw food. Right. Our oldest at that time was 18 years old. And he was the reason that she finally allowed me to go ahead and make the switch, even though she didn't want anything to do with it. But he was diagnosed with kidney disease. And I was like, we can't keep feeding him a food that we know is contributing to and going to make his life shorter. We have to do this now. And he took to it in a week, and we took him through the transition process. He probably would have taken to it first day. He was ready for it. Our other senior also, he wasn't as old. He was probably 15. It was Twist at that time. And I, the first time I just put even raw meat from the store, we would get like organic beef or whatever, just to test it out first to see how they would take. He took to it immediately, and it was like interesting. And the toughest one was our youngest, and he was 7. And he was the one that took 6 months to get him off of the crap food and onto raw completely.
Yeah, it does take time with some cats. And it is interesting that your older ones were more inclined to eat it, because I feel like a lot of people who start using our food are also at the end of their rope and their cat's really sick. And then they try it and the cat's like, yeah, this is what I need. Yep. So I don't know if there's something where they're just like, man, I feel crappy. Let me try this. But we do have a lot of people where the easiest transition are the older cats or cats that already have some sort of medical issue going on.
Yeah. I think it definitely was that he knew what his body needed. They knew.
And there's that study, I think they did it in Japan in 2014 or somewhere around there, that basically showed this group of cats were given, a highly palatable food, and all the way over to basically a citrus tasting food. But the highly palatable food was not nutritionally balanced or full of biologically appropriate ingredients. But it was fish flavored. Okay. And then the citrus flavored food was nutritionally like a good nutrition. And over time, it showed that the cats have given the choice. And choice is so important with cats. If given the choice over time, they chose the food that was most nutritious for their bodies, what their bodies needed.
All of the cats in this study had gone to the
so it's
orange
really
flavored food.
Affirming for people that are like, oh, I've tried this or I've tried that. It's sometimes I don't think we realize in this very fast moving world, it takes a lot more patience on our part than we may mentally be prepared to invest, but it is so worth it. I know you've been talking about the crap foods that are out there and all that. I want to talk about your food, which is in stark contrast.
Yes,
and one that I'm so excited, especially as, like Jay said, this is the fastest growing segment in the pet food industry right now.
Yeah.
And it is so many of these very small businesses that take great pride in the transparency of their ingredients and all of that. And I'm really excited to share with our audience what an awesome option you are. So if you can, share a little bit about how you source and what's important to you in your food.
Absolutely. So right now, we have 7 different flavors. They're not flavors, they're proteins available. And we kind of try to lean towards what a cat would be inclined to eat. So we have chicken, turkey, duck, rabbit. And then we have a boneless line that came out about 1.5 years ago. And the boneless line is great because it offers adult cats a more balanced diet. So when you make cat food or dog food, right, you have to decide whether you're doing adult maintenance or you're doing all life stages. So all life stages needs to be able to allow a kitten to grow and thrive on the food. Well, a kitten needs a lot more protein. They need more calcium, they need more fat, they need many things that an adult cat, phosphorus, doesn't need the excess of. So we came out with the boneless line to really try to fill this niche. We had people who said, my cat's 18 or 19 years old and they're starting to enter, poor kidney function. Yeah, 19 years of kidneys functioning is a long time. So this has helped keep that phosphorus level down for their kidneys and, their urinary tract system, everything functioning really well. So our sourcing. When I started, I picked the farms that I wanted to work with after doing a lot of research, and those literally are the same farms that we still work with. And when I started in 2010, I was like, can I get 40 pounds of chicken? Now it's like, can we get 4,000 pounds of chicken? Right? So we have been able to grow with those farms. And the farms that we use are all humane. They do the best to handle the animals well. They use just really humane, clean practices. And the chicken and turkey is GAP certified. So I don't know if you guys know anything about GAP certification. I don't. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so here's one of our bags, just so you can see. Ta-da! So here's our little GAP logo. This is our chicken. And you'll see our ingredients on the back. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's maybe 10 ingredients. But the nice thing with this is 99.5% animal protein. So our supplementation is 0.5%. So let's say we're running 2,000 pounds. You're talking, what's 0.5% of 2,000 pounds? A pound of supplementation going in, right? So when we make our food, we really gear it towards, this is the protein we're using. How can we get all of the nutritional needs fulfilled using this protein? So our chicken, for example, we're using whole chickens. I don't know if anyone else is using whole chickens. And the difficulty is AFCO won't let you use the word whole chicken because they say it's not a real thing, but it is. So, we start with a base, the whole chicken or a whole duck or a whole rabbit, and then we add in offal, some egg yolks, and then minimal supplementation. And everything we source, it's not just, it is human grade, but it's not just human grade. These are companies that are in Whole Foods. They're nice quality meats. I have been known to pull a chicken from the production floor and eat it for dinner. So there's nothing going in that I don't trust or don't feel like has really been sourced as ethically as possible. The GAP certification. So GAP is essentially a way to kind of audit what a farm's doing. So farms can apply for this certification, and then Global Animal Partnership comes in. They look at your farm and they tell you what improvements need to be made with handling, cleanliness, space, how much water they're getting, their access to food, their access to the outdoors. And once they get that certification, it's just an extra level of kind of safety to know there's someone else watching what this farm's doing, and then also watching us, because we also are audited and have to report back, this is what's going in our food, these are the farms we're sourcing from, and we're kind of stuck with what we've chosen. So it's like, these are the farms, these are the ingredients. They don't, if they're not there, I'm not making food. So there's also a level of like, preparing for a run and making sure that everything's available. One of the best benefits, though, is that our food is super consistent because we're not substituting anything. We're not buying, chicken hearts from another farm because they're cheaper that week. It's always the same product. So it's been great for cats because they, I don't want to say they're picky, but they're particular. Yeah. And if they like a certain thing, that's what they would like to see consistently.
Yeah.
So,
consistency is so key when it comes to.
Yeah, I hear Lucy in the back.
I do too.
So
Lucy's just.
She probably wants to go out. I don't know. She's a with anyone.
Okay, so your supplements are also the point.
Oh yeah.
Those are also human grade supplements, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And they're minimal and they're specific for whatever protein it is. So our duck, for example, because of, duck has a ton of taurine, it has more iron, it has more copper, it has things that other poultry does not have. Right. So when we supplement it, it's really just to ensure that we go above and beyond what AFCO's requirements are. So that if your cat's just eating one protein that we produce, they're going to thrive. There's no worry that, they're not going to have enough of this nutrient and over time it's going to be detrimental. Yeah. But it's nice because, most pet foods, that's not how you make it. You get a premix and then you can add that to all of your different foods and it balances it. But for me, I'm like, why would I do that?
But it doesn't. It literally, it doesn't balance. Like, we learned this the hard way. We were also using at the beginning, much more affordable to get the little premix packs, which I'm not against, right? But to get the little premix packs and mix it in with meat or meat and liver in order to balance the meal. And then, but it was only for that specific protein that it would be the same balance, right? And then it was Dr. Karen Becker had explained it in like a video or something where she said that, and it made perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but like every different protein is going to have a different nutritional value.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to be the same. You can't use the same packet of supplements and balance that meal. So over time, if you're doing the same thing, you are going to have nutritional deficiencies. So I love that you guys do that. I love that you balance for the specific proteins.
Yeah, it's worth the extra work on our part for sure, just to make sure that it's, that's the thing. I feel like if I'm going to make cat food, I want to do it right. I feel there's a huge amount of mistrust in the raw feeding industry to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't want to add to that. I want people to feel good and confident with the choice that they're making. And we're not a dog food company. And that's also a big piece. We weren't like, hey, dogs, if we just tweak this, now it's for cats. No.
Yeah, but that's what most of them do.
All cat all the time. So, that's sort of a little bit of background with our sourcing, but everything is sustainably sourced. And we've spent a lot of time finding those companies and really making sure that we have a good relationship with them. So
that's awesome. I really love that it's, it is a growing segment, but I love that you've kind of locked in on you're growing this kind of the whole economy. It's a very symbiotic relationship to find good, ethical farms that you get to know over this, build relationships with.
Yeah.
And not only does it translate into a very, what did you say? A very consistent product, but it's also, helping to grow this economy of better options for.
Yeah, exactly, because we're supporting farms that are doing better. And,
right.
The hardest part with this making cat food in general is I really love animals. So the last thing I want is I know my cat needs to eat meat, but I would rather choose meat that, is better for her in the long run and is better for the animal that's, losing its life to feed her.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't want to support farms that really are in there to just make money.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that Judith said, right. Kibble is food, but whole chicken doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Talking about AFCO.
It's absolutely true. So we've been talking to try and figure out like, okay, well, how do we make this clear? Because it really does separate us from a lot of other foods on the market. And people don't understand that. If you see chicken on the back of the bag, it could be a whole chicken or it could be a chicken frame.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So
you mean just the
yeah.
like,
not even the meat. Yep.
It is remarkable the the definitions of what
it's
that's a whole different rabbit hole, which I think also brings just so much more value to company owners like you that are willing to actually show face, talk about what you do, why you do it, and why it's so important. And I love that. I don't love that there's usually a heartbreaking situation or a difficult challenge that precipitates someone like you being like, this is what we're going to do for my cat. And then once you do it, you see the change, and then you realize everybody needs this option, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and to know what it is to do it and do it well. There's Kathy here in the comments that we love Sabrina. Her Tina Fey and Flo love RAWR. Thanks for providing the best cat food for our girls. They're the boneless.
Yeah, Kathy's great. She's been a customer. That's the other thing. We've had people purchasing our food since 2014 when I was like scooping it into tubs, right, in the back of my shop. So it's amazing that we have these people who have cats that live years and years and years and aren't, hospitalized and taking 40 medications and then, eventually naturally pass and then there's a new cat. And it's like, it's amazing to have that, those relationships as well, with our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of bringing it back to what you mentioned, what got this whole thing started with your kitten dealing with so many digestive issues. And Jill sent a comment, said, longtime RAWR customer here. My cats love it. I've had 2 cats with severe digestive issues, and raw food has been a key part of their gut health. And I love, Jill, thank you for that comment, because I do think there's that fear factor, especially if your cat is dealing with digestive issues, to then do something that, like for me, was super scary. And is this going to be
it can be scary, but if you think about it, a wild cat genetically shares over 99% of the DNA with our house cat. People have this idea, oh, cats were domesticated. No, they weren't. we were a good opportunity. We had barns with mice. They got fed. We fed them more. They could come inside and be warm. They could go back out. It's brilliant, And are there some, there are some breeds of cats that are definitely maybe a little farther removed. But at the end of the day, lions and tigers, they're out there, they're killing their prey. And, the other thing that I did want to mention, because this is really important, I think, with raw feeding, is the moisture content. Yeah. And this is something that, I don't know if people really recognize. Cats naturally are not big water drinkers. Right. Like they don't have that scoop tongue that dogs do, right? So they've done studies, and I guess they get 0.1 milliliter of water every time they lick.
Yeah, it's a drop.
Say that again.
0.1 milliliter of water every time they lap. So the studies that have done show that if they drink water consistently for 1 full minute, it will hydrate up to a pound of their body weight. So you have a 10-pound cat. I've never seen a cat drink water for 10 minutes in one day. No. Right? So dry food, the average moisture level there's 10 to 12%. With raw food, I was looking at our food earlier today, some of them are 76% moisture. Right. And that doesn't mean they're not getting the nutritional needs met. It's just that it's raw meat. There's a lot of moisture in that. So they're looking to their food for hydration naturally. And I think, that's something to me that's really important because kidney issues are very prominent in cat world.
Yep. And
And
urinary
so-
issues.
Exactly. Yeah. And I hate to think of all of the cats that have had to have surgery because of their blockages. Like it's so avoidable and so easily avoidable if they're on the right track for eating a food that they're naturally meant to be eating.
I think too, that moisture thing is so important. I know that a lot of people say, well, can I just add water to my cat's kibble? I wonder if your cat's still going to eat the kibble when it's soggy. Some do, but I do think, and I can't quote the study, but the difference in food that has moisture, water added to it versus a raw meat where the moisture is innate. It's much more than just
It's
water.
a different
Right.
type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know the details here. I'm not that sciencey, but I'm sure someone here does. The other thing with kibble that people like to point out is, for their teeth.
I'm very excited that myth is really being dispelled, mainly for the real science that shows that 70% of cats by the time they're 3 years old will have some kind of dental disease.
Right.
90% by the time they're 7 years old. It's something that we've all we've dealt with it, and and if kibble was cleaning cats' teeth
with so many cat
with
parents
90%
for
of
the
cats,
past,
right?
like, I don't know, 100
Yeah,
years
it's just
something feeding dog food.
virtually impossible because cats have sharp teeth, and so that impact, it's breaking the kibble immediately. The kibble's not massaging their gums and keeping it clean. But what does do that is, raw pieces of meat. Like my cat, I give her quail or chicken necks, and she'll just really, and it's great because it works their minds, it works their jaws, it makes them tired. Everyone loves a tired cat.
Especially when they're young.
After they go crazy doing zoomies, you want them just to so that is the other piece that we also currently make. It's in stores. We don't ship them yet, but we did come out with a parts department. So our parts department has hard to source meat pieces and other things for toppers, for making your own meal, for people who are making their own raw food. So we have everything from whole quail, sardines, chicken necks, green lip mussels. I think right now we have 20 SKUs on that one. So it just keeps growing. But it's, it's funny because I came out with that because it was so hard for me to make cat food in 2003. Where are you going to find a turkey gizzard? You're not, unless it's Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I came out with it and I was like, great. And I didn't think much of it. And then I started bringing it home, and now it's like every day. Like all the animals in the house, I think tonight got some ground goat. They got some mussels and some necks. One of my big dogs, he'll eat a whole rabbit leg, and it's just so good for them. It's such a nice variety, He's very vocal.
I want another one. I know we're already running out of time, but Carrie has a great question here, or looking for some information, because I think a lot of people share this. She said, I think completely raw scares me because I've read about a few people whose cats contracted something, can't remember the name, and the cat died from it. Can you ladies help me understand what that may have been and how to feel safe about it? I mean, that was my fear. And again, just growing up, it's like if you touched raw chicken, I grew up in a family that if there was ever raw meat around it all, was like, oh my God, wash your hands, wash the counter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are you aware of any kind of
I mean, like right now, and you might be, Carrie, if you're talking about recently, you're probably talking about the bird flu, which is the big,
the big
headlines right now. It's the big fear mongering right now. But prior to that and after this, it will continue to go on that that salmonella, listeria, all of these things are in raw food, and your cats will contract. That is the main fear mongering that we have heard online.
Big fear. It was a real fear to me. Like it wasn't.
Right. I mean, but can you explain how and why this isn't something that we should worry about when it comes to our cats?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, those are the big three, right? That show up in raw meat or spinach. Okay. It's not just in raw cat food. It also happens in food that you and I would be consuming.
Big
So
that just happened.
There's a
Had me
cucumber
scared to death. Yes.
So there's a couple things. Part of this is, yes, there's going to be salmonella. There's going to be bacteria on raw meat. There always will be. And the thing is, the FDA allows a certain amount when it's for human consumption, because in their minds, they're like, this is going to a grocery store and it's fine if it's covered in salmonella because they're going to cook it and then they're going to eat it. When it comes to pet food, the FDA has a zero tolerance policy on that. So what we do, and I'm honestly not concerned about salmonella in a cat, right? Because cats have very short digestive tracts and they are extremely acidic. So salmonella can go in and it's likely not coming out. The FDA themselves did a study where they fed salmonella covered meat raw to dogs. All the dogs did fine. No one got sick. And only 8% of them, the salmonella even showed up in their feces.
Right.
Yes.
So that means that bacteria is getting destroyed, right, as it's going through their system.
Right.
Regardless of that, because of the FDA's policy and because we want things to be safe for humans and for them to feel comfortable, because that's the thing. Being scared is not something you need to be embarrassed about or try to fight, right? There's a lot of information out there and it's hard to know what's real and what isn't. So the more information you have, the more you can kind of question things and determine what's right for you. That's really what counts. So as a raw feeder and producer, my goal is never to make someone feel bad about what they do, right? If you've been feeding kibble up till now and you're like, oh man, I should have, it's not too late.
Nope.
And you don't need to beat yourself up about it. I mean, I fed kibble to my cat before I knew any better. And and again, it's not wrong. It's just, this is, where you're at in your cat journey, I guess, for lack of better words. So with our specific food, there's a couple things we do. One, we're in a USDA facility. So there's a USDA inspector there. Everything is cleaned top to bottom every single day. They also check the machinery for listeria because that's generally where listeria hangs out, is on machinery. And then for us personally, for E. coli and salmonella, we add something called a bacteriophage. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, to our food. Bacteriophages also seem scary because they're a virus. They are a virus that naturally exists in the world. And what they do is they eat bacteria. So there's a very specific bacteriophage that eats salmonella. And they can culture it and bottle it. And we put it into the food and it eradicates the salmonella. And the coolest thing is because it's a virus, once we freeze the food, it goes dormant. But once you defrost it, they reactivate and come alive again. Alive. They never died. They wake up. So they can constantly be eating up any salmonella that does exist. So we do that and we send the food out for testing and hold it until we get a negative and then we ship it. So the salmonella, E. coli, listeria, I think at this point we have a really good grasp on those items. And for the bird flu, that's a hard one. How much time do we have?
Right.
The bird flu, there's been a lot of conflicting information. There's been a lot of protocols that haven't been followed correctly. It's concerning. There's been a lot of information about the cat who did die in Oregon. And that cat did go outside. The only bag of food that was tested and meant to be positive was the bag coming from that cat's home. Right. The FDA isn't even involved in this, but the state of Oregon hasn't tested any of the sealed bags, to my knowledge. And I spoke with the company a few weeks ago. And they've, that food, the meat that went into there, they've already sold over 40,000 pounds of it. It's been in circulation for 6 months. So the questions start to, populate. But despite that, the bird flu is alive and well, unfortunately. It's been going on since 2022. I've been discussing this with our farm since 2022. And that's kind of where sourcing becomes really important again, is that if you have a farm you trust and it's a USDA inspected farm, they are testing those birds daily, nonstop, because a blood test is the best way for them to find this virus.
Yep.
And this part's a little sad, but if they have one positive, they have to destroy the whole flock.
Yep.
And the last time this happened, it was 3 million chickens.
Wow.
And I bet you can guess where those chickens went.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are, in communication with our farms, and we've been following the same protocols we always do. And there's an added bonus. I did find a lab that can test for it. So as soon as we get that rolling, which hopefully will be in the next week or so, we will go ahead and start testing all of our food for the virus, just to kind of make, I want people to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for you guys to take that extra step just for peace of mind, that's huge, because one, that's expensive. That's not cheap to have your foods tested. But especially since they've already been tested because they're human grade USDA, then to go back and then retest again for peace of mind hopefully you don't have to do that for long. The bird flu has actually been around since like the 90s. So it is like, it's not something new. But since there was, one allegation, I guess, is that the right word? I don't know the right words. Again, against a raw food company, then it has.
Well, I think it's just one of those things too, where.
I mean, I got scared about it. Even got scared about it, and I'm like,
well,
whatever.
You look at how it blew up, but I do think there are a lot. There's always going to be pushback, especially for the raw feeding movement in general, from various places for various reasons. But to your point, Sabrina, I love that you said it the way that you said it. There is nothing wrong with being scared. Being paralyzed by fear is one, but gathering knowledge, and that's why I love people like you that are willing to put everything, just be transparent, come forward. We get to meet the face behind the brand. We get to know who you are as a human and why you do certain things. And I feel like this thing has blown up so big that a lot of people are just paralyzed by fear because they don't know what to do. And when you do dig into the information, you do realize that protocols weren't followed and that there's, a lot of things that are going in there. Does not mean it does not exist, but it also does not mean that we continue to feed our cats chicken and duck. And
we're not going to go start feeding kibble just because it's so highly cooked. And
the bigger, more realistic fear is being around migratory birds, right? Like it's
yeah, exactly. I have ducks.
Do
you? And then other birds come in. Not those kinds of birds, little birds. But I'm just like, you guys go. You gotta go.
I love our birdie friends.
Same. We live on a lake.
Well, and Kathy said here, Kathy, this is a great way to kind of wrap this up. Sabrina has been so upfront with the bird flu info and debunking fears, calling out questionable facts and current news stories. I have total faith in her sourcing and her transparency. I love the effort that you put in to this, and even as you said,
I think it's really important, to be transparent, to have integrity, and also to be like, I was wrong.
Right.
Oh,
so I've been very careful with the bird flu to not say anything unless I'm like, I have the evidence behind this.
Right.
I can trace it back and show you this, that, or the other, because that's how we got into this situation to begin with. Yes, there's the bird flu. Yes, it's scary, but also if you're a raw food company, my guess is that you're probably sourcing pretty clean food that is for human consumption. And I promise you that no company that sells to Whole Foods wants to be the one that leaks bird flu into the human food supply. So they are following their biosecurity measures, and it's not just it's not just greenwashing. They are actually doing this to protect themselves as well as the public.
Yeah.
I
Oh
love
my
it.
gosh. Thank you so much.
Okay, so for everyone that's like, oh my God, RAWR, let's go. I want my cat to eat like a lion. You guys are in stores.
Yes.
And
Do you have a store locator on your website?
We do. We have a store located on our website. We also do direct-to-consumer delivery. Right now, it's 4 bags. We ship 4 bags at a time. We have subscription. We love our subscription people. You know, they just get a nice cycle. They never run out of cat food. I should sign up because there's days where I'm like, I don't know what my food is, you know. But I'm sure that happens to you guys once in a while.
Yeah.
it sure does.
Stuff
It's
happens.
like panic. Yeah.
There's always that struggle, that day where you're like, I'll crack an egg and have some yogurt, you know.
Just
Have
gotta
some yogurt.
slide
Oops.
by.
Yeah.
Forgot to go grocery shopping. Yeah. Okay. So the link to Eat Like
Eat
a
like a
Lion
lion.
is in the description here for anybody that wants to check it out. Maybe is the parts department is also there for people to.
The parts department is not there yet. It's in store only. That's a little bit, we're still working out exactly how to, we have to figure out what fits in a box. You know, it's more shipping's more complicated than one would think. But it's also something that, you know, if it's a request, if someone's like, hey, I also want these things, yeah, we can make it happen. Absolutely. We just need to get all the pieces onto our website. Yeah.
Awesome. And you guys are all over social as well. So if people want to find you, it's Eat Like a Lion, yeah?
Yeah, Eat Like a Lion. That's correct. Absolutely. And people are welcome to email us. We will always email you back with whatever information it is that you need. So
Thank you so much. This is
yeah.
awesome.
Thank you guys.
What you do.
Yes.
Yeah. You
And going all the extra mile again and again to bring the best product to market. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Of course. All right, you guys. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for joining us.
We'll see you
again
soon.
very soon.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Bye, guys.